Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Friday, June the 16th, 2023. As we look at the last several verses of our reading from Genesis 12 this past week, beginning in verse 6. Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. And at that time the Canaanites were in the land. And then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." And so he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. And from there he moved on to the hill country on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on by stages toward the Negev. In these verses, we have this sense that Abram and his large company, again, remember, he's moving, he's not just putting a couple of things on top of his car or hitching a trailer. I mean, he's got family, he's got flocks. By family, I don't mean children yet, obviously. And the reference to pitching his tent is a reference, scholars tell us, to the fact that he probably stayed for some length of time along the way. And then they continue to move on again, heading farther south to the land of Canaan, toward the region of the Negev, which was a dry desert area. At that time, though, the region was sparsely populated, we're told, so it was not a good source for food or resources. But it may be that Abram and his large group of people and animals had to keep moving away from the more populated areas, because we're told that at that time the Canaanites were still in the land. So they're trying to find a place to settle down, though we're not really told that explicitly. But in any case, Abram has now basically journeyed across much of the land that God has promised to Abram's offspring. In a sense, he's begun to take ownership. We're also told, and I'm not even less than I am a scholar of Greek, I'm even less a scholar of Hebrew, but the Hebrew verb nasa, meaning to journey, there in verse 9, specifically means to pull up one's tent and move to another place. And apparently the construction using something called the infinite absolute stresses that the traveling was continually going on, so that he is journeyed and going and journeying. It becomes Abram continually journeyed by stages. And that really kind of caught my eye, journeying by stages. And so in looking for, to understand a little bit more about these verses, I came across a piece written by a pastor, Derek Hovind of Salem Lutheran Church down in Orlando, Florida. And he writes, in the 12th chapter of Genesis, God calls Abram to go to the land that I will show you. Of course, that's verse 1. Without a definite destination, Abram and his household journey by stages. Generations later, the people of Israel will journey by stages through the wilderness in Exodus 17. This idea of moving stage by stage, says Hovind, suggests a long time of movement between the starting point and wherever the final destination may be. And it got me to thinking again about something I mentioned in my sermon about all the moves that Jeanette and I have made over the past 43 years, 12 of them all together. We started out after getting married to move down to Beaumont, Texas for an internship. When that ended, we moved to New Jersey, trying to figure out, because I was taking time off from seminary, moved back to New Jersey, actually here to Freehold, and stayed with my parents while we figured out where we were going and had to find jobs. That took us then, the next stage, I guess you'd say, was up to the state of New York, Middletown, New York, where we were there for a couple of years, then back to Ohio and seminary to finish seminary. But staying in Ohio, went to Gibsonburg, Ohio, for another internship. And when that ended and I didn't have a call yet, we moved outside because a new seminarian was coming, new intern was coming, moved outside of Gibsonburg to a little town by the name of Burgoon for all of like 1 or 2 months. And then I got the call, and we ended up going down to Kentucky, where we were for 4 years. And then we moved again back to New Jersey, to Piscataway and All Saints, the congregation I served. And from there to Pottstown, Pennsylvania. From there to Lilburn, Georgia. The next stage was back to Ohio for a second time in our married life, at least. And then back to New Jersey for a third time, back to Freehold, kind of where, well, not kind of, but where it all started. And what Pastor Hovind reminds us is that we journey through life by stages. Sometimes we want those journeys to be concrete and to go according to whatever plans and goals that we may have, but more often than not, he says our destinations become uncertain, our stages unplanned. That was certainly the case of the last part of my life. Some stages are marked by milestones, graduations, promotions, kids moving out, retirement parties. He says others are marked by events, births, deaths, accidents. Other stages come and go without us noticing. We look back and we see that much has changed over some years without our having realized that we were traveling on new ground. And so another way of saying that we journey by stages is to say that we live day by day. Abram and the people of Israel navigated by listening to God and taking their next best faithful step forward. We navigate our own lives, and our shared congregational life is the same way. He says we listen for guidance from God and discern the next steps of our shared walk and life. And so that's a way of looking at that in Abram's life. We get to see, how it all ended up and all the things, all the promises that God made, how they unfolded and worked their way out. But it wasn't that clear for Abram, and it's not clear for us. It won't be clear, really clear, until our life is over and we see where it was that God has led us and the stages of our life that God has been with us through. And so we may not be Abram or asked to do anything comparable to what Abram was asked to do, but we do journey day by day, stage by stage through life with God leading us, and all of us trying to understand and discern where exactly it is that God is leading us. Well, we'll come back tomorrow and kind of wrap this whole idea up by looking at that passage from Hebrews 11. Until then, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.